better for you breakfast and dessert has landed. As a mom who prefers to start the day in a healthy way, I often find myself coming back to the same few foods on rotation. I typically don't mind this because I try to streamline as much as I can these days, including breakfast, but it's fun to mix it up every so often. And that's why I was excited to try Otherworld products. Meet healthy pancakes, waffles, and brownies that taste too good to be true. All of the chef-crafted, plant-based baking mixes are made with hidden fruits and veggies and no added sugar. Otherworld offers plant-based products with ingredient lists that include zucchini, dates, cauliflower, sweet potato, apple, and blueberries. No added sugar, no nuts, no soy, and no dairy make Otherworld products kid-friendly, but also delicious and nutritious for parents too. From now until December 31st, Otherworld is offering my listeners an exclusive discount of 25%. Head to eatotherworld.com and use my code MINIMALIST at checkout. That's code MINIMALIST at eatotherworld.com to get the best deal of the year. Hello and welcome to the Minimalist Moms Podcast. I'm Diane. I'm a mother of 3 living in Columbus, Ohio. I'm trying to make room in my life for what matters by getting rid of the clutter and living life with purpose. I hope you'll join me on the journey to think more and do with less. Angela Lyons is a minimalist mom and avid traveler who loves to chat about finding balance, slowing down, and living an intentional life. Her family has undergone a few significant changes over the last few years at the hands of minimalism, which has allowed them to embrace what is most important to them. As a part of this, Angela extensively decluttered her items, sold her house, elected to go part-time at her company to spend more time with her girls, and packed up the family for a 3-month trip to Peru. She is passionate about minimalism as a means to achieve her family's goals, which includes a bigger focus on travel and less of a focus on all the stuff. Today, she'll be sharing her story and her best tips for simplifying your travel experience. But before we get to the episode, I want to quickly share my minimalist moment of the week with you. This one's quite quick. I had a realization the other day when I was listing something to Facebook Marketplace. I was reviewing the prices that I had set for some of these items. Some of these items are higher quality, and so I want to, quote unquote, get my money's worth. However, I think if we go into purchasing wanting to get our money's worth, quote unquote, when we're going to sell it, maybe we should reevaluate the purchase. Is this something that I'm only keeping until I'm ready to get rid of it? There are some things that absolutely will retain their value, but it's rarely what we initially spend. I'll be honest, I do hate this. I wish that we could sell things for what they're worth, especially if they're in good condition, but it was just another moment, aha moment for me. I can say the money has been spent, and that's okay. Especially if it was something that I used regularly and brought me joy. So anyways, the takeaway would be if you're looking to make money once you've purchased something because you think, oh, I'm just going to sell this one day and make the money back anyways, or I can make some money on it. I wouldn't go into purchasing with that idea in mind. It's a benefit when you can get some money for the things that you own, but I think we have to be realistic and drop our expectations when it comes to how much we might make on Facebook Marketplace, Poshmark, eBay, Craigslist, wherever it is that you're choosing to sell. So that was my minimalist moment of the week. For anyone else like me that does enjoy selling on Facebook Marketplace, I wish you good luck and realistic expectations. So let's get into this conversation with Angela Lyons. You and I were talking on Instagram, I believe, about topics to talk about on this podcast. And you told me that you went for 3 months in Peru with 2 suitcases and 2 backpacks. And I was like, oh, we have to have you on the show and talk about that, how you were able to travel with so few things with you. That is crazy.
There was a lot of planning involved and prep to get ready for that. But we knew we have backpacked before. My husband and I, we used to travel before we had kids. And so we're kind of used to this living out of a backpack lifestyle. It's a little bit more challenging challenging with kids, of course, but it's worth it to not have to have the stress of carting around thousands of suitcases and planning for running through airports with them and kids and all sorts of things like that. So a little bit of planning, but definitely worth it.
Definitely. So let's get into this conversation. But before we do that, why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself to the listeners, tell everyone who I'm talking to, and then do you consider yourself to be a minimalist, or is this something that you have you pared down more since you've had kiddos?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Angela Lyons. I am a mom of two young girls, Alice and Elizabeth. They're 2 and 4. I am a wife and a part-time financial analyst, but I do consider myself to be a full-time minimalist. It's kind of funny because I feel like minimalism and I have kind of had this on and off again flirtatious relationship. We were like dating in my 20s, and then like in my 30s, we got really serious. Since becoming a mom, my interest in minimalism has really exploded. And I feel like now I fully identify that way. But I think that with having kids, there's just so much stuff that comes with it. After my travels with my husband, we were settling into kind of a lifestyle here in the US. And it felt like it was accompanied by this never-ending rat race to always be acquiring more and going for like a higher paying job or a bigger house or nicer cars. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting those things. I just feel pretty confident that that shouldn't be what you're basing your whole life on. I feel like the more I decluttered, the more I disassociated from all of that. And so we made a lot of big changes as a family. Just in the last year, actually, we sold our house. I left what I felt like was an ambitious full-time career and elected for less pay and less responsibility so I could be home with my girls more. And we moved 4 hours south to a small town in Southwest Virginia and into my parents' 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 1,200 square foot home. And we weren't sure what the next steps were going to be, but we knew we needed some time and space to figure it out. And those next steps ended up turning into that 3-month trip to Peru. And our time abroad with minimal belongings was everything I hoped it would be. And I'm still kind of pinching myself that it happened. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about it more today.
So did you say you are originally from the United States?
Yes. My husband is from England and we met teaching English in South Korea. And then we traveled a bunch after that.
All right. Well, let's get into your trip to Peru. You said that you were living at that 1,200 square foot home, and then you guys decided to take this trip. What inspired you to do that? I mean, that's a pretty big thing to go to Peru for 3 months.
Big thing. I feel like I've always been really drawn to this idea of one of the taglines of minimalism is like experiences over things. And that really resonates with me. My husband and I think we just thrive off of the challenge of going somewhere new and really integrating ourselves into a new culture and meeting the people that live there and understanding their way of life and just kind of submersing ourselves in that. And we always thought that our travel days were over when we had kids. But I think the last 2 years with having our second and with COVID, we had a lot of time to really reevaluate what was important to us. And we decided that we wanted to try and make this trip possible with kids. And we wanted to do it before they were in school full time. And we are fully remote thanks to our kind of to the world situation. And we knew that we would regret not giving it a try and not teaching our kids to focus on these really important experiences and being adaptable as opposed to always playing with toys, or not that there's anything wrong with that either, but whatever else there is.
Definitely. So you started planning for this trip. How far in advance did you do that?
Not terribly far. I think we booked everything in like March and April, and we left in June. But we had been talking about it for a long time. So there was an element of history associated with it. But then as soon as we booked everything, we started planning and unpacking. I think that one of the big things that goes into a trip like this is planning ahead, because if you want to travel lightly, you have to make sure that you're bringing the right types of clothes, the right types of shoes, and also being really smart with what you select to bring with you since it's a limited amount.
For me, when I'm planning for a vacation, I can typically pack me and the 3 kids in one suitcase. I like to wear the same thing regularly when I'm on vacation. It makes it a lot easier, which I'm assuming that's what you did as well. So yeah, I just take all of our stuff and I roll it really tight, and we each have a couple of outfits. I will say
that it makes it easier to not pack as much if you know you're going to have access to a washer dryer.
100%. Yeah. And I think it's surprising too, just how many places will offer that. I mean, even if we were there for 3 months, so we had an apartment with a washer dryer, but even when we traveled around, hotels often offer this service. And in other countries, it's surprisingly a lot more affordable than it is in the United States. But I agree wholeheartedly. One of the big things that I have to remind myself is that I'm not packing to be a fashion influencer. I'm not the biggest on capsule wardrobes, but for a trip like this, that's 100%, I think, the best way to go is just to have a few pieces that you can cycle through.
Definitely. Especially if you're going to go to a beach. I mean, I will wear the same suit and then just have little shorts that you're wearing the entire week. And again, I guess it depends because some women really love their clothes and they do want to take a lot of different variety of photos and whatnot. But I think that if you're going to do this simply, then you maybe have to take that and push it off the table. I think we're talking specifically about how do we do this in the most simple manner that we can fit everything into maybe one suitcase for ourselves and a carry-on if need be. So what did your process look like? As I said, for me, I just will write down Charlotte, Martin, Benji, and then myself, and then I'll write down everything that we need. Usually I just write one shirt, shorts, and I do that times 3 and just whatever else we might need. So what did it look like for you?
It was really similar for us. I did start off with a notebook and a list, and I was writing down what we needed. It was a little bit difficult because we knew we were going to be traveling through multiple climates. So that kind of forced us to be even more smart with how we were packing. I'll say that layers, I think, are really beneficial. We didn't want to pack this like super heavy winter coat. So we just brought a spring coat, but we knew we could put a couple sweaters under it because that was what the weather was showing it would be. And yeah, I also bought packing cubes for this trip, which I felt was enormously helpful. I'm not one to go out and buy something new for one sort of experience, but I know that this is something that we can use long term that'll be really beneficial. Just helps to keep your clothes compact and together. And also when it comes to unpacking, it's just such a breeze. But we did make that list. We found shoes that we knew were going to last and be comfortable. And we only packed 2 each, one for walking and one for things like flip-flops, like the beach. And then we also looked at things like electronics. We didn't want to pack a bunch of books. So we did invest in a Kindle for the kids, which I know that some people have concerns about screen time. But you can also set settings on these devices so that it only shows books. And that way my kids could read. I felt comfortable with them having access to reading material while we were going to be gone. And we brought the same things for ourselves as well. So just having that list and thinking it through of what you're actually going to need and being practical and then diving into, I know that when it came to actually packing, there were probably a couple of things that I felt after, even though I'd written them down, it just wasn't going to work out to bring it. And so we kind of trial and errored while we were packing as well.
We love the Kindles as well for that ability. My daughter is a big reader now. Most of the places we've ever traveled, we drive to, so you can pack a little bit more in your car if need be. But we do have to think about our resources at our location that we're arriving to and what we actually do need while we're there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's going to be specific to where you're going and how far of a trip it is. I think in the US, it's always great to invest in, or there's little libraries out there that you can always go look at, but being aware of what you need in the specific location is important.
Today's episode is sponsored by mylifeinabook.com. This is probably the most thoughtful gift I've ever come across for parents or grandparents for the winter holidays as families get together to celebrate. It's basically a very powerful way to connect emotionally with them, preserve the most precious memories, and show them that you really care. And best of all, it's an instantaneous gift. I've tried it with my mother and she totally loved it. Every week, mylifeinabook.com lets you choose from a list of thought-provoking questions or even write your own that gets sent to your relative by email. Your relative writes their answer and you can choose to add a meaningful picture. This happens every week, and at the end of 1 year, all their stories get combined in a beautiful keepsake book that you can store your relatives' memories forever and pass them on to future generations, which is printed and sent to you. You can request as many copies as you want and even get it in audio format as well. With mylifeinabook.com, you can give those you love most a personal gift that tells them they're meaningful to you in all future generations. To save $10 off your first purchase, use discount code Minimalist. That's Minimalist to get $10 off mylifeinabook.com. Check out the link in the show notes for Millions of Americans experience thinning hair. It's more than common. It's actually normal, but it's not openly talked about, especially amongst women. Going through it can feel lonely and frustrating. If you're among one of the 30 million women that are impacted by weakened or thinning hair, know you're not alone and that there's a solution you can trust to deliver results. I want to tell you about Nutrafol. It's the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement. It's clinically shown to improve your hair growth, thickness, and visible scalp coverage. It supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting the 5 root causes of thinning, which are stress, hormones, environment, nutrition, and metabolism through whole body health. In a clinical study, 86% of women reported improved hair growth after 6 months. And 3,000 plus top doctors and stylists recommend Nutrafol as an effective and high-quality solution for healthier hair. Who doesn't want that? It's a simple addition to your daily routine. You can grow thicker, healthier hair and support my show by going to Nutrafol.com and entering the promo code Minimalist to save $15 off your first month subscription. This is their best offer anywhere, and it is only available to U.S. customers for a limited time, plus free shipping on every order. Get $15 off at Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com. Promo code Minimalist. I'm not big on going to the grocery store these days. It's a lot of hassle, and a lot of the items I'm looking for have just become far too overpriced for my budget. Finding high-quality, affordable grocery items in one place is almost impossible in today's world. But thanks to Thrive Market, I stress less because I get everything I need in one place, plus savings are guaranteed on every order. Shopping with Thrive Market means you'll find everything from healthy pantry essentials to sustainable meat and seafood to non-toxic cleaning and beauty products, and it's delivered right to your door. When you buy from Thrive Market, you can get 30% off the best organic groceries and always get the lowest price with their price match guarantee. Thrive Market is also my go-to place for organic pantry staples such as nut butters, dates, avocado oil, and organic applesauce pouches for my kids. If you're gearing up for all your holiday festivities, Thrive Market is your stress-free solution. Order from the comfort of your couch and skip the grocery lines and crowded parking lots. Their fast and free carbon-neutral shipping gets your order to you in no time. And best of all, when you join Thrive Market, you're joining a community of 1 million plus members and sponsoring a family in need. Get convenient, high-quality, affordable groceries delivered with Thrive Market. Join Thrive Market today and get 30% off your first order plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/minimalist for 30% off your first order plus a free $60 gift. THRIVE market.com/minimalist. More.
So when you were considering packing for maybe a long-term trip, what did it look like for you?
I think when it comes to things like toys with young kids, I think that's an important thing to touch on, especially whether it's short-term or long-term. I think a lot of parents can feel a little bit daunted by, at home, they have all of these resources available to them. Like, are they going to go crazy? How am I going to entertain them when we're gone without bringing all these toys or resorting to screen time? And again, not to knock on screen time, because we definitely utilize that tool when we're traveling, because you have to use what's available to you. But if you're looking to avoid that too, I recommend packing minimal toys, because there are a lot of things you can do outside of that. You can buy arts and crafts when you arrive, for example. That's kind of a universal thing. It was worth it to us not to bring paper and pencils and crayons and Play-Doh, knowing that when we arrived, we would be able to pick those things up. Another tip that I had was to pack balloons. They're so small and they fit so easily, but they are just the best toy when you're young. I posted about this actually on Instagram and had some moms of older kids reach out to and say, my kids still love balloons as well. It's just such an easy toy to play with in a hotel room or wherever you're going to be. I just want to remind that kids will play with anything. If you don't have toys available, they will find things to play with. My kids played with buckets and squats and, made forts and changed their clothes 40 times. And they were okay, even though we left all of our toys at home.
depending on your kids' ages. I mean, we just went to Michigan over the summer, and the majority of the time they weren't needing to play with toys because we were playing at the lake, or we were hiking, or we were cherry picking, or out for food. I will say it is very helpful if you find an Airbnb that does come with some of those amenities. So when we were playing at the lake, they did have a bucket of toys that we were able to take over that just stayed at the Airbnb. So things like that might be something to look out for when you're planning a more long-term trip.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and the experiences are the best part. If there's a playground nearby that you can go outside to use, or if the hotel has a swimming pool, there are these infinite ways to entertain the kids without having to resort to bringing toys. When we were traveling at one point, we were staying at this hotel that didn't have toys like that, but we were at a beach and we bought some sand toys. And instead of throwing them away or bringing them back with us, we donated them to the hotel. And so that way, the next family that came along, they would be able to utilize those.
So I don't know if I should share the story because it's kind of embarrassing and a little crazy. But my husband and I, right before we had kids, we traveled down to Florida with a couple of friends. It ended up, long story short, they had to come back the next day because our friend's dad had a stroke, and they had bought all this stuff at Walmart the night before, which Marty and I were minimalists at that point. So we were like, what are you guys doing? But all that to say, we ended up using some of the stuff and we were like, oh, this is kind of beneficial. It is kind of nice to have this shovel here so we can dig a spot for our chair. So we were not wanting to obviously bring those back with us on the flight. We didn't know how we were going to do that. So we also needed a ride to the airport because they had rented the car. We were under 25 at the time. They took the car back to the airport and we're like, we don't want to pay. Yeah, we're like, we don't want to pay for a taxi. I feel like Uber wasn't really a thing at this point in time. So we were like, we don't want to pay a taxi. So Craigslist was very big at this time. So we said, hey, we have a beach blanket, a shovel, some toys, a beach chair. We're willing to barter all of this for a ride to the airport. And we ended up getting a ride from this older woman, which a few of the moments were kind of nuts. Again, this story is crazy. I do not recommend put ourselves at risk. We did not have children at the time, but you can think outside of the box. As I said, this was something that we did, so we didn't have to take the items back. But I don't recommend everyone doing that.
I think one of the best parts of traveling is obviously, you have to be safe in whatever situation you're going to, but it's those random encounters that make these experiences so special, and being able to use those resources like Craigslist, which I know still exists. So people could definitely take that as a great tip. We did the same thing. We did buy some toys while we were there. We were there for 3 months. We used our local Facebook. There are expat groups in almost every single location that you could visit. And we donated the toys to someone local. And then there's always ways to use what you need, but then be able to give it back so you don't have to worry about bringing it home, which is always the worst part.
Yeah, you could even see someone on the beach, maybe the last night that you're at the beach or whatnot. I know we're talking a lot about the beach, not necessarily the city, but I know we were leaving Alaska last year and we had bear spray that we had to buy when we went into Alaska, but we didn't want to have to throw it away because bear spray is $30 or $40. We didn't end up finding anyone that needed it, but we were like waiting outside the airport, like, does anyone need bear spray? Just so we wouldn't have to waste it, which again, maybe that's bizarre and maybe that is a little weird and people don't want to do that. But if we can help someone, that's a huge perk too.